defending the free market, and making the moral case for capitalism. The Justin Moore Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Justin Moore Show, where we make sense of what's going on in this crazy, insane, out of control world. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am not, as I promised. I thought I'd get everything worked out in regards to the show and this and that. And so far, I failed you guys. I just went to the website right before I started recording here, and I wanted to see if my latest episode popped up there, and hell no, it didn't. The last episode it still shows on my website is the damn David Dow episode, which is from a month ago. So I've already emailed both of those guys. I got to go back and I have to say, hey, no, it's not working. Like, what are you guys talking about? So I've got to get all that figured out. I've literally had no time to get this stuff going, but I'm gonna this week. I'm gonna get it done. Okay. So I really apologize for that, because I know some of you who the usual way you listen to the show, you've not been getting it. You've been thinking, I don't know, that I probably quit doing my show because you're not getting the new episodes. So I've got to get this figured out. It's just so frustrating. Like, what the hell? This should all be automated. I really don't get it. So anyway, actually, speaking of things, besides my show not getting out there when it's something that's so straightforward and automated like this, I was late for work at the airport this last week. Well, there was Mike Pence, the Vice President of the United States. He came to Billings, which is obviously longtime listeners of the show, or just listeners of the show in general. This is where I reside, just right outside of Billings. And I was on my way to work, and I was thinking, because I was working a night shift, it's like, well, you know what? Let me swing by Taco Bell and just grab some. Load up on a bunch of tacos, so I make sure I last my whole shift. I'm not hungry, and so forth. So I do, and I'm heading up to the airport, the one way I don't usually go at all. But it's happened to be where that Taco Bell was. I thought this was probably the best way to go. So I get to the top of this hill, and I'm literally 5 minutes from the airport, and here I see they're directing traffic, and there's a policewoman up there. It's like, oh crap, what's going on? So I pull up by that policewoman. It's like, hey, I work at the airport. I need to get to work. And she's like, yeah, sorry, we are not letting any traffic through here. Which it's literally, if I could go through that way, it would take me less than 5 minutes to get to the airport right there. And then she's like, oh yeah, by the way, also 27th Street is blocked off, which is the usual way I take. And the reason that one was shut down is because Mike Pence is in town, and they had to block that off. It's like, well, that's great. So the only available option to get to the airport was this route. I had to go all the way around. It took me forever. I had to call my boss and say, hey, I'm going to be late. Nothing I can do. And it ended up taking me 35 minutes just to get around, when I was only 5 minutes from the airport. Now probably like 3 minutes, really. And so, oh man, I tell you what, going back, the traffic was crazy. There also, insult to injury, there was a wreck on the one road. People in Billings are the worst drivers ever. I think I've already explained that on this show. I think that's definitely true. People don't pay attention when you see protected left green arrows, where that's the time when you're riding someone's butt to get through it. Oh no, Billings, they don't do that. They let one person clear the intersection, then the next one goes on a protected green arrow. So here you have like these cars lined up. We're all trying to get somewhere, but you got these guys just taking their time. Oh yeah, nope. Let's just wait for the other car to get all the way through before I decide to turn. There's sort of stuff that happens like that all the time around Billings. So I dealt with all that on my way to the airport. It was just so frustrating. But I eventually got there. But yeah, just crazy when you're that close to the airport. And I later found out the reason why that road was blocked off, why I couldn't get to the airport, there was a guy who had a standoff with police, and he was shot by 4 different officers. Actually, well, there's 4 shooting at him, and he ended up getting fatally shot. And that happened probably 13 minutes before I got to the top of the hill right there. So that just had happened. So, just horrible timing. And I thought I was going to be 20 minutes early for work. I think I'm sitting good. But see, that's the thing about life. You think everything's going to be fine. This is great. You think you have everything all planned out, and then it doesn't go according to plan. But you got to deal with the cards you're dealt and go with it. So that's fine. We got it all worked out. Now, I ran across this article here, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Sometimes I like to get on the show here and talk about different points of view and people who come across things and look at things from a point of view, or just to try to help understand. If we can understand where these people are coming from the other side, that can help us in terms of arguments with our friends or people who don't agree with us, particularly the Austrian view of economics. And I don't have the exact headline here, but essentially what's in the headline to this article from Quartz is the capitalists are destroying capitalism, is what this guy is arguing. Now, what's happening in this article? Actually, I'll just lay it out. They kind of have a little intro here. Then they go into an interview with this Dutch economist. His name is Paul de Graaye. I think I'm saying that right. And so what they're saying here, and actually let me just read the first few lines here. Although markets reign today, Paul de Graaye says that the forces of government control are strengthening. De Graaye is one of Europe's leading economists, now at the London School of Economics. And his book, The Limits of the Markets, from Oxford University Press, was recently translated into English from Dutch. In the book, de Graaye warns that the nature of swings in the pendulum between government and market can be dangerously disruptive. Okay, then let me just do a few more lines here. Early in the 19th century, economic liberalization came into fashion, with free market theories dominating for more than 100 years. Then the Great Depression in the 1930s pushed power back to governments. People put their faith in large-scale government interventions, from Roosevelt's New Deal to the Nazis' uncompromising economic program. Governments tightened their hold after the Second World War, but as the Soviet Union and other centrally planned states struggled, free marketeers once again held sway in the 1980s. Faith in free markets was later shaken by the 2008 global financial crisis, and governments are now steadily wrestling power back from the markets. Okay, so what they're doing in this article here, they're setting the table, pointing out, okay, yeah, it's a struggle in history between, the free marketeers out there and government. You got the New Deal, that's when government came back. It's talking about all during the 19th century. It was the free marketeers that reigned, and that ended with the Great Depression. So it's pointing out, look, the free market, people like me, I like to say how great the free market is. You're not going to have problems. It's just amazing. But look, it's out of control. You had things like the Great Depression, the worst economic crisis, happen if you let free marketeers run amok. So it's kind of what they're pointing out here, and just kind of the struggle back and forth in the 1980s, which a lot of conservatives like to talk about. That's when the markets came back into fashion, and then they disappeared again. So they're going back and forth there. But and then with the 2008 housing crisis here, they're talking about how that was another failure of the free market, which I've pointed this out time and time again on my show. What do you mean, a free market? 2008? A free market? What free market are you talking about? When the most regulated industries out there, financial sector, healthcare, all the sectors in our economy with the most problems are the ones that are the most regulated. So you can't ever talk about an unfettered free market. So they're already kind of pointing out, it's already coming from that perspective. So now from this point, the interview from Quartz goes in with this Dutch economist guy with his new book out called The Limits of the Markets. And on the cover of the book shows a giant pendulum, so it's swinging back and forth between the government and the free market. And so the interview starts off with this Paul de Graaye. And the interviewer asks, "What do you mean when you say that markets have reached their limits?" And he responds, "When markets grow, they don't take care of two things, both of which are external costs. One is the environment, Without government control, the markets will lead to as much destruction of the environment that people will reject it. That's when the market has its limit. We can already see it today in the extreme levels of pollution in China and India. The other external cost has to do with inequality. What do you do with a market system that creates great benefits for many people, but also hardship for those in society that lose? We can't let this happen because it will lead to political instability. We have to be willing to tell the rich, you will have to contribute more and we will have to tax you more. Unfortunately, we don't do that. So here's this guy making these claims here, which I think he's way wrong. The free market can regulate and does care for the environment. And how does the free market do that? Well, through property rights. And I like how he's pointing out, say the extreme levels of pollution like in China. Well, the last time I checked, China's a communist country. You got to have property rights because the last time I checked, if someone's polluting, my space, you have legal claims, you can take them to court, you can deal with it that way and get damages. But when you have communal property, when you have government property, which should not exist, that's when you have problems. That's when you have issues. I can't ever think of the dang term because I'm messing it up. Like the situation of the commons, I can't really think of it right now. But it's where, if everyone was sharing the same pasture to graze your cows, and it wasn't yours, you most likely that's going to lead to overgrazing of the land. You want your cows to try and get as much out of that land as possible and, eat the grass down to the dirt, so you can fill your cows' bellies because, if your cows don't eat the grass, the neighbor's cows, the other guy's cows will. But if it's your private property, you're going to switch to alternate the cows to different pastures. You want to keep it so there's always that grass there. You eat away all the grass. Well, then you got, more erosion. Then it's the weeds that come up. Then there's less grass. It's the quality of the grass goes down. So there's all these things that come into play. But with communal property, you get the worst of both worlds. You have a less efficient use of available resources. And that's what happens when government enters the mix. But this guy's completely missing this out. Then his other point is talking about inequality, which I think he gets to this a little bit later in the interview. So let me just come back to that. Okay, now he says here, you say we're heading back to a point where governments take more control. How does that play out? That's one of the things that frightens me. When governments return, it's very traumatic because it's likely to lead to authoritarian systems that destroy much of what we have built up in terms of democracies and the markets. We either get the kind of systems we know, like the communist system, but I don't see that much on the horizon. Or we get the crony capitalist system where authoritarian figures use the markets to enrich themselves and you get vast corruption. That's the big danger, but quite inevitable if we are not capable of solving these environmental and inequality problems. Okay, I like how this guy is pointing out, we can get the system we know, which is communism, which he doesn't seem to really be that opposed to. Or we get a system we don't know what really goes on with crony capitalism. Hey, this Paul DeGrasse guy, we have crony capitalism today. All the stuff you're criticizing about the quote-unquote free market, this is crony capitalism. Now, I do sympathize with this guy to a certain extent because the things I've warned about on this show, talking about the rise of authoritarianism, you can kind of get a feel of or a possible potential of authoritarianism from our politicians here in the United States. I won't name names. If you listen to older episodes, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about when I say that. But that is all, those are real concerns. And that's why on this show, why do I stress we need to get to a free market? We don't want a guy who thinks he has all the solutions to just go and just take absolute control of everything, which kind of seems the way we've been going for some time here. But a lot of people aren't seeing the red flags. So is it going to get too late when people are like, maybe we shouldn't have, let this slide at the time, And then the way that they labeled this article here, how the capitalists, what the hell was the name of the piece here? Are the capitalists in society, are they the ones destroying capitalism? Well, in the interview from this guy, This is kind of where they get that. Markets can't create value. Okay. And actually, wait, before I get to that, let me just read this one line, which I find is interesting. Markets can't create value if there are no public goods. If there is no infrastructure, no good educational system, we need governments and public action to do that. Now, see, this is where a lot of people, and this is how a lot of people think. Well, that, yeah, you see, you need government to provide a good education for people, provide public goods, provide infrastructure, because that can't happen in the free market. And time again on this show, I'm pointing out that, look, all the things where we think we need the government, we really don't. Our kids keep getting dumber and dumber. They keep watering down education. Kids have to go to school and to get a bachelor's degree in some stupid degree to at least get the equivalent of what, say, an 8th grader had in the 1950s. So what are you talking about, how provide a good educational system? Our government is not doing that. Our government is failing. And, you guys have seen the statistics that they come out with, talking about how the United States compares with all these other countries. And it's like, it's the American boys and girls who, they're the most cocky about how they feel that they're, how good they are at things like, say, math and reading. So, the American guys and girls, they think they're amazing at everything. Oh, yeah, we have really good math and this and that. And it turns out we're not so good at it. And it's like, say, from what I see from the statistics here, the Asians, they're the ones who are the most humble and like, no, I'm not good at that. And I can tell you, when I was going to high school, our exchange students from Asia, they always were so humble and like, yeah, oh no, I don't know about this or that. And they were freaking geniuses about it. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? So I guess confidence can get you can help you out to a certain extent in life, but to be blind to how really ill-equipped you are, that's not really a good thing. And so that's where we're at in the United States. Our government is destroying the education. If you really think, especially in the age of the internet, that we can't have the private sector take over education, which the private sector is, with all the online videos, you can take college classes for free. There's so many resources out there. It's like, are you kidding me? We really need the government to provide education at this point. That's really hard to make that argument from my perspective. And okay, now here is where this Paul de Grey, where he's talking about the capitalists. There's a few sentences here. In the U.S., where wealth concentration has become quite excessive, the wealthy have so much power, and you can see it in the political system. A president has come to power representing the wealthy, and they have their own agenda. They want even more wealth, even more power, and this we cannot accept. It will destroy democracies and, in the end, the market system. That's why it is essential to save capitalism. We have to save it from capitalists. Capitalists who, in their drive to accumulate so much wealth, will destroy the market system. In order to maintain the market system, you'll have to introduce some limits on wealth concentration, and this can be done by a progressive wealth tax. Okay, here again is what the average person does, especially all the people happen to be in power. It's that they look at a symptom. They're like, oh, well, look at these people who want to accumulate so much wealth. Automatically when you think of people like that, you think of the successful investor like Warren Buffett or, you name it. But is there really an issue with someone creating more and more wealth, getting wealthier? No. But if we look at who are the people who have gotten the most wealthy and say under Obama's 8 years as president, the guy who was all against inequality. He wanted everyone to be equal, but the rich did very, very well under Obama. If you really want to make it so it's a little bit more fair, the people who are benefiting the most from the current system, it's the crony capitalists. So this guy's saying we need to, save capitalism from the capitalists. We need to save capitalism from the crony capitalists. And the way you do that is by getting the government out of the way and quit making special favors for people and quit having an inflationary Federal Reserve monetary policy that benefits the rich, because it's the rich who benefit the most from inflation. They're the ones who can protect their wealth. They're the ones who can put it in these vehicles, these financial vehicles, where they make a lot of money from an inflationary system. But the people who live paycheck to paycheck, as your paycheck doesn't go as far each week, each month, because the price of your goods are going up. I mean, there's not much you can do, really. I mean, yeah, you improve your skills, try to get a better job, more pay, that sort of thing. But I'm just talking in general. You work in your salaried job, you're kind of stuck. And you're being screwed over in that sort of system. And, the people who have the small businesses and stuff, at least you can write off a bunch of different things. But the people who just, you got a nice, cushy job, you're an engineer or a nurse or, and all your money comes from a salary, you can't write any of that off, and you're stuck. So the more taxes go up, the less you have to spend to further and to engage in things that you find of interest or that you value most. And so that's the key thing here. And I made this point, was that last week's show? That if the best single reform we could make is to put the dollar back on a gold standard. It is. You want to stop it so like all the stuff that this guy's criticizing here in the interview, how the rich are getting richer at a very, very fast pace, which I don't see a problem with, but it is happening mainly because they can benefit from this inflationary policy. So they have an edge in that perspective. And if you had a dollar that was backed by gold, if you actually had a gold standard, guess what? Those people, they're not going to get that sort of advantage. It's with a gold standard, it's more of a exchange of value for value. That's more of the capitalism I want to get back to, not this crony capitalist, monopoly money, goofy stuff that we see going on. And it's just a matter of, the people who get the money first in this crazy, insane, out of control world. And so that's what we need to get back to. Yeah, trading value for value. That was an Atlas Shrugged, where they used, in that society, they used the gold coins with the dollar sign on the coins, where they exchanged value for value. People were rewarded for having amazing talents. If you're an amazing artist or an amazing, architect, you got the fruits of your labor. And it didn't come at the cost of anybody else. No, people were willing to pay you because you were so good at what you do. That's what we need to get back to. That's the type of system that everybody benefits from. But that isn't the system we have today, because we've moved away from capitalism. And it's people like this Paul de Grahi, this Dutch economist, one of the top leading economists over in Europe. It's guys like him that they're mislabeling, and they're blaming capitalism when it's not capitalism at fault, because, as I've just stated several times in this episode, we don't have a free market. We don't have a capitalist system like I preach about on this show. We're very far from that. We keep moving more and more away from, what we had, which we were pretty close to, say in the 1870s and 1913, when we were under essentially a pure gold standard at that point. That was exchanging value for value. And look, that's when we had the Industrial Revolution. Look at where more and more people came out of poverty in that time frame. Gold provides a stability, and it can't be manipulated by government, because the government can't print gold. But unfortunately, in history also, that's why we've never had a completely free gold standard, because during times when the government, when they were short on cash or whatever, they would temporarily halt redemption in gold. And so that's obviously, you should never allow that either, because that creates problems down the road. So now, guys, that is all I have for you guys today. I promise you guys, I'm going to get on the ball here this week. It really has just been crazy with work, and finally just got all the corn planted, so at least got that, and there's some rain coming, which is good. So that will give me some little bit more time here, but so I can get this, so my website updates get that figured out, why my new episodes aren't coming up. And anyway, guys, if you want to help the show out, just go to justinmorshow.com, or spelled MOHR, my Amazon widget there, and yada, yada, yada. I won't even tell you all the other stuff because I've got to do my end of the deal here, and I've got to get all this stuff working and uploading because I don't get it. I wish I understood the technology stuff a little bit better, but I can work on that. No excuses here. All right, guys. So I will talk with all you guys next week, and I'm looking forward to it. This is Justin Moore, signing off.